Hello there, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I wanted to give y'all some tips and tricks for carving your rugs. What are my credentials, you ask? Why would you listen to me, you ask? Credentials, 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 more credentials. And also, carving is my favorite part of the step. I absolutely love it. So I would just absolutely love to give you some tips and tricks and kind of just show you how I carve my rugs. First thing is I like to wear an apron. I've been moved for, I don't know, months, but I finally dug out my aprons. Wear an apron because the carving fuzz will get all over you. Let me clear that up. And like all over your clothes. And I basically only wear black. So the next thing is I wear a face mask. I kind of just wear this cute ghosty like fabric face mask. Personally, I don't think you need anything too like heavy duty, as the fibers aren't like microscopic, you know what I mean? Yes, they can get very small, but they're not something that's gonna go through a fabric mask, right? And just in case you don't know, you're wearing a mask because of the little fibers. You just don't really want to be breathing in all of these fibers. Anyway, so mask up. Ta-da! Next up is my tool of choice. This is my carver, also known as Buzz Aldrin. If you know, you know. This carver is from All Things Effie. I will have it linked down below. And you can also use my code Artsymadwoman with anything at All Things Effie, and it'll save you 15%. Isn't that nice? Okay, Buzz's eye does not want to stay. You good, buddy? It looks weird without his eye, does it not? Anyways, I am affiliated, obviously, with All Things Effie, so if you do use my code, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. You're helping me do more of this. Anyways, let's get to what we're carving. I did already start carving this. Let's take a moment. We love it. We absolutely love it. It's spooky soup. Here, I'll come closer. So these are the parts that I have already carved. Here's more credentials. These are skull mushrooms. I feel like this rug is going to be a really great example of showing like different scenarios with like different difficulties. You can probably see here, my little green bats here are quite... Maybe you can't even tell that they're bats at this point because they're not carved yet. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's begin carving some of these sections. Okay, so I want to start with something simple like this, just so I can show you like the starting basics. So I'm going to start carving this outside line of the noodle, meaning this like yellow color. And like I said before, we're basically going to be carving the same line twice. So we're going to be carving the yellow, and then we're going to go over that same line and carve the orange. Because what we're trying to do is basically split these two colors so that there's like a nice V between them. So to start carving this line on the yellow side, I'm going to take this corner, my left corner, and I'm going to put it in like right in that line. You see how like the entire line of my carver is in line with the center line of these two colors, so that is how I'm going to follow it. But you don't just want to put that corner in straight up, because like I said, we want to do a V, and a V isn't just like a straight up and down line, so it's got like an angle. So you want to, instead of having your carver be like straight up, you want to put it in between those two colors and put it at an angle. Not like a super crazy angle. We don't want to be like carving too much of this. We really just want to sort of create like a roundedness to the yellow. So now I'm going to carve down the yellow side of this line. And then I wipe that away. So you can see my first go, I did well here, but then we also have some bits here that were not carved, which is fine because obviously you can go again. So now if you look, the yellow is pretty clean here. And one of my biggest tips is to swipe the yarn. So with this line in particular, since we're carving the yellow, I want to swipe the yellow over the orange so I can see any yellow that kind of like sticks out that needs to be carved. So now we have the yellow started, and so I would probably go and switch to carving the orange side. So I'm going to swipe the orange over the yellow so that we can see what exactly needs to be carved. So now since we're switching from carving on the yellow side, we're going to be carving on the orange side. So that means I'm going to flip the corner that I'm carving with. So we're going from this corner, and now we're going to be working on the orange. So I'm going to go to the right side of my carver, and I'm going to put that in the same line, and not just straight up and down, but at a nice angle so that we cut the orange. And so now when you look down this line, like very close, you can see that the orange is kind of rounded this way, the yellow is rounded that way, and it's like a nice V with this perfect line in the middle, following the line between the two colors perfectly. And just to show the difference, here's our carved line, and here's an uncarved line. So you have like a bit of the yellow spreading into the orange, a bit of the orange spreading into the yellow. So while you're carving two colors, two different sections, there will always be one line that you're following. So now I'm going to go ahead and carve this line here to kind of connect up here. I'm going to start by carving the yellow. So I'm going to swipe the yellow towards the orange. And so we can see all of these little bits that need to be carved. I'm going to put my corner in, angling towards the color I'm carving. I'm going to swipe all of that away, and now you can see it's getting clearer. So now I'm going to swipe the orange towards the yellow. And now this line is much more defined. And so you can kind of like switch back and forth between carving one color or the other color. That's what I do. I kind of just like work on the same line while switching to each color and swiping in the direction that I need to until I get what I like. So we're going to move over to here. We can already see that the yellow is really sticking out. Okay, and you can see that I over carved the yellow right here. There's like a line that's dug into the yellow, and then a little tiny section of yellow from me digging into like the wrong area. And that's okay. Don't freak out. So what I'm going to do first is swipe the orange over the yellow so that I can really clear up the orange section so that I can fix my yellow. Okay, so now our little yellow section here is definitely like sticking out and we can see it clearly. So I'm going to go in there and just cut what needs to be cut. I just want to emphasize that when you have like a little section that you accidentally like over carved, like I just did in this clip, after you clear away the other color to be able to isolate your issue, and then you go back to the section that does have the issue, you're just still cutting into that same line between the two colors. Just because you cut an accidental line doesn't mean that you're going to carve into that accidental line. The goal with the accidental line is to be able to hide it, so we are still going to be carving in between the two colors, the same line that you've been carving before, to try to hide the accidental cut. So basically it's like just pretend you never did it. Pretend it's not there. And now, while I originally overcut on the yellow, you can't really tell because all I had to do was kind of like carve away the orange and really isolate the issue. The issue will, once you've isolated like the issue, it's going to stick out, and then you can just carve like you normally would on the yellow, following your normal line. Obviously, if I were to cut straight through, that would be a whole different issue, but if you're cutting just a little bit too far into a section like this, it can be hidden, it can be fixed. So don't freak out. Another thing you can do when carving is kind of like change and manipulate how things look. So here I kind of have like the noodle going to sort of a corner point right there. And I'm not a huge fan of it. I want it to be more curved. I'm going to put that corner in against the noodle, the yellow part, and start to curve it rather than following that line. So push all the yellow forward. And then we'll push the orange towards the yellow. And instead of following exactly that line, I'm just going to just barely kind of like round that sharp corner instead of following the sharp corner. And so now, instead of this corner, it still comes to like a little bit of a point, but much less than it did before. And it's a little bit rounder. And so now let's move on to like a little tiny section. It might not look so tiny because I have you quite close to it, but it's just kind of like the size of the tip of my finger. We're going to do all the same things that I have told you so far. So I'm going to start with the yellow. The reason I'm starting with the yellow is because I want to like preserve as much of the orangey color as I can. We have way more of the yellow going on, so I can kind of cut more of that away than I can of the orange. So I'm going to swipe the yellow, put our corner in. I'm going to start up here because the shape of this is basically like a teardrop. I guess it's upside down for you, but it's like a little teardrop shape. So I'm going to start up here and go straight down to the point. And something I like to do is like small sections like I just did. So I'll do like tiny little section, wipe it away, tiny little section, wipe it away. So now I'm going to do the other side, but still the noodle. So I'm going to swipe the yellow this way. Okay, so now we have a bit of the yellow kind of like cleared away. So I'm going to start on the orange. So I'm going to swipe it this way because I'm going to start with this side. Another thing I like to do is sort of like pull one color away and like hold it so that I can see really deep in there. Now we have a nice cleared, actually I'm seeing a little bit of brown in there. Or orange, whatever that color is. Actually, another very important tool, if you want to get like super fine in there and make sure that your two colors are not like spreading into one another, get you a pair of tweezies. These are very sharp ones and they're also curved and I love them so much. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use my tweezers to peel away the yellow to kind of isolate this little orange bit. Sometimes I'll just yank it, but this one's pretty in there. I'm just going to pull it a little bit so that it sticks up more. And then you fall over. I think I'm just going to cut it. I switched to my phone so that you could like really see. So here's the little yellow. So I'm just going to kind of isolate it, pull on it a little bit so it sticks up. I'm just going to cut it. And so now we have the perfect little teardrop. All right, so moving on to the bats. Here's one that I carved, so you can see it's all 3D. The lines are nice, carved lines all around the edges, and this is, actually, we'll do this one because it's facing. This is what it originally looks like and what we're going to get it to when we carve it. First off, this little green and this green here bothering me, so something needs to be done right now. So I'm just going to kind of like use my tweezers to push away the orangey color and then pull on the green and sort of like wiggle it towards where it's supposed to be. So there we go. Now it's kind of like making more sense. So I'm going to start with the wing up here. I'm going to start right at the point and I'm going to be carving the orange color, so I'm going to pull it forward over the green and angle my carver so that it cuts the orange. Something you also don't have to do right away is sort of like dig your carver like all the way in. You don't have to do that. Something that makes it a little bit easier at first is to maybe just lightly start carving. That way you can kind of like figure out where your lines are and you don't, if you were to mess it up, it's not like such a super deep cut. So when you're rounding like tiny corners like this, you don't have to just go whoop, because that can be kind of scary, and honestly, I feel like I mess it up when I do that. So I usually do curved lines like this, especially small ones, with little like bursts of carving so that I can adjust. Basically the same as like tufting a curved line. I do like little bursts of pressing the trigger so that each burst I can adjust a little bit so it makes like a nice curved line. Wow, look at that. That's nice. So something I should have said at the start, and I feel like is a big like spot to start, I carve like the little sort of like detailed things first, like the skulls, how they're sitting on top of like the noodles and the rest of the design. So like the eggs, the bats, the skulls, I carve first, and then I'll go around and carve the noodles. I am going out a little bit out of order just because I'm showing you like different techniques and stuff, but I do usually start carving. It's the same kind of like process as tufting. When you tuft a rug, you start with the little details first, like the skulls, the eggs, and the bats, and then you kind of like fill in all around it. So it's kind of that same thing. I'll start carving these like smaller little details first and then work my way bigger. So I do want to jump over to this tiny little section here. So I have very little orange to work with. And kind of the same as the teardrop here, we had more of the noodle color. That is, again, what I'm going to start with here. Since I have more of the yellow, I'm going to start carving up here and taking away some yellow. And when I have tiny little sections like this, I definitely work slow with like little movements. I don't go the whole line. So the orange, and just very lightly carve away what I need to. And again, like if you're nervous, starting out carving just like kind of lightly and not digging all the way in is a really good way to start. And that way you find your lines and then eventually you can start going deeper. You don't have to like cut all of it away right at the start. I actually feel like there's more there than it looked like before because we took away yellow first. We were able to see more of the orange. All right, so something I wanted to show with this curve, you know, when you're starting out, you don't have to do this, but we do already have, we've carved away some orange, we've carved away some yellow, and we have a nice V in between these two colors. If I swipe the noodle this way, you can see, if I shine it like this, you can definitely see it. But right here, there's kind of like almost a point that the noodle has. It looks good this way. That's why swiping is, I feel like it's one of my biggest tools, is like swiping the yarn in all different directions to make sure that I like how it looks. So if I swipe the yarn this way, you can see that there's yarn kind of like sticking out there and it doesn't look round. So instead of putting the corner of my carver right in that line and angling it like I normally would, I'm going to very lightly place my carver to sort of cut off this point and flatten it out. You can see that it didn't take off much, so I'm not like super carving into it, but now when I swipe this way, the noodle looks rounder because I've cut off that sort of like sharp edge that I made when carving this way. So now the noodle, look how round it is. Even swiping this way, it's round. Swiping this way, we need to cut some orange. And even on the orange side, it's not just the noodles that I want to be round. So let me try shining here. So you can see this shadow here shows where I cut earlier when going in with the corner like this. And then you can see this sort of like ridge where it's not rounded because of the way that I cut it. So I'm gonna lightly go right across that little rib to just barely, you see how much like it took off, it's barely anything. But now when we swipe it this way, you don't see that shadow with the ridge because this is rounded. So those are some of, I feel like that I was trying to think of like, is there anything else that I might add? And I feel like I hit everything and I basically showed you exactly how I carve rugs. Anyway, this is how our spooky soup rug turned out. I don't have it in this exact moment because I think we're going to finish carving it on stream. So yeah, I hope that this helps you carve rugs if you're new to rug making and you're nervous about carving your rugs. I completely understand because it's something that, like, it's not very forgiving. Once you make it cut, it's just there. So I've definitely made some mistakes in carving. I've definitely, in my opinion, ruined some. And there are other tools besides the ones that I used, but I do feel like among the carving tools, I feel like one of these is more accessible than others. And I've also seen people carve their rugs with just a pair of scissors. Oh, buzz. But I think they're called duck bill applique scissors. That's what I've seen people carve rugs with, if you wanted to just try it with scissors first, because that is how I started. I didn't start out with a carver. I started with just a pair of scissors. Granted, that's because I didn't have money right away to get the carver, but you can totally do it with scissors if that is something that you want to do. Also, I do stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday over on Twitch, so, and I stream making my rugs, the entire process. Nothing is off camera besides like maybe some boring stuff, but even sometimes that makes it into the stream. So if you have questions or you like want to see carving live, like I said, I'm going to be carving the rest of this spooky soup rug live today. It won't be today for you as you're watching this. This will probably already be carved by the time you're seeing this video. But I might be carving something else, like Mio, No Face All Mouth, or Chapel maybe, or one of these. This carve here is going to be really scary. You might want to be there for that one, because I think that's actually gonna test me. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. You can follow me in all these places. It is usually at Artsymadwoman besides Twitch and Tumblr, which is the Artsymadwoman. I have all kinds of links down below if you're looking for tufting supplies, if you're looking for my Twitch channel, if you're looking for my Instagram, if you're looking for a really cute shirt that says I love you and to absolute death. I also have the link for that down in the description as well. And if you're a Twitch subscriber or a YouTube member, you can get 10% off of said t-shirt. Anyway, I love y'all to absolute death. And I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. The volume's on, right? Yeah. Yeah, it is.